Did you know that Samsung's next foldable might finally fix the one thing that's made the Z Fold feel awkward since day one? The shape? The new One UI 9 leaks are pointing to a Z wide fold with a 4:3 inner display. And if that's real, this isn't just another yearly refresh. It's Samsung admitting the book-style foldable should have been wider all along. And the wild part is, we're not getting this from random fan art. We're getting it from leaked firmware assets, including new animations that basically hint at the device's proportions. Alright, here's what we're talking about today. Samsung's rumored Galaxy Z wide fold, the steady drip of leaks coming from the One UI 9 builds, and why a wider aspect ratio could make Samsung's foldable lineup feel completely different in 2026. So I'm going to walk you through what the leaks show, what it probably means for usability, how it might sit next to a Z Fold 8, and what features are being tossed around, like zero crease tech, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5, and a more practical cover display. And yeah, I'm going to say it, Samsung can't launch this fast enough. Let's start with the core idea, the wide part. If you've used a Galaxy Z Fold, you already know the vibe. Closed, the cover screen is tall and narrow. It works, but it's never felt natural for typing, browsing, or doing quick phone stuff. Open it up, and the inner screen is great for multitasking, but it's still kind of a tall rectangle. Watching video, reading, editing, even just scrolling, everything feels like it's optimized for long instead of wide. These new One UI 9 leaks are hinting that Samsung is finally moving toward a 4:3-ish inner aspect ratio for this wide fold. That's important because 4:3 is the classic tablet ratio. It's the reason iPads feel so good for web pages, documents, and split-screen work. It's also a ratio that makes a foldable feel less like a stretched phone and more like a compact tablet you can pocket. The earlier leak drop included images found inside the firmware that suggested this 4:3 layout. But the newest piece that's getting people talking is an animation showing cover screen mirroring, and the device silhouette in that animation looks noticeably more rectangular than the current Z Fold line. That's the kind of detail you can't easily hand-wave away. UI teams don't make new device silhouettes for fun. If the animation assets are real, they're designed to match real hardware dimensions because UI elements need to line up with real-world display behavior. So when people say these leaks carry weight, that's why. Now, does 4:3 automatically mean perfection? Not exactly. It means trade-offs. A wider foldable could mean the device is wider in your pocket. It could mean different hinge stress. It could mean different weight distribution. But in return, you get something a lot of users have been begging Samsung for, a book-style foldable that feels natural when it's open. And that's the key phrase, natural. Right now, Samsung's Z Fold inner display is good, but it's still a compromised shape. Wider means your apps don't look as cramped in split screen. Your on-screen keyboard isn't as skinny. Your documents look like documents. And games that support tablet layouts stop looking like they're squeezed. Now let's talk about the cover screen, because this might be where the wide idea really hits. The rumor is that the wide fold, or some version being called the Z Fold 8 wide in leaks and chatter, brings a wider front cover screen with a passport-like form factor. That's a funny phrase, but I get what they're trying to say, less remote control, more normal phone. For a lot of people, the cover screen is the entire experience. They open the foldable for big tasks, sure. But day to day, you're replying to texts, checking maps, scrolling socials, snapping quick photos. If the cover screen is narrow, you're constantly reminded you're using a foldable. If it's wider, it disappears into "this is just my phone," which is exactly what it should do. So picture this. Closed, you get a cover display that feels closer to a standard smartphone. Open, you get a 7.6-inch-ish inner display that leans more tablet than tall phone. That's the pitch. And if Samsung nails it, this becomes the first Z Fold that doesn't require you to mentally adapt to it. Rumors are floating around about zero crease technology. I'm going to be careful here because zero crease gets thrown around every year, and it usually means less visible under certain lighting. But it's still a big deal if Samsung is pushing harder on this for 2026. If Samsung combines a wider inner display with a significantly reduced crease and adds an anti-reflective coating, that's not just spec sheet fluff. That affects every single interaction. Reading in bright rooms, watching video, editing photos, using stylus-like input, even if there's no S Pen focus here. Glare and crease are the two things that constantly remind you the screen folds. Reduce those reminders, and the device feels premium in a way that's hard to explain until you use it. Some leaks suggest a dual rear camera setup with a flash, borrowing design cues from something like the S25 Edge look. If that's true, it signals a certain strategy. Samsung might not be trying to make the wide fold the ultimate camera king. They might be optimizing for thinness, weight, and usability, while keeping cameras solid but not ultra-level. And honestly, that could be the right call. Foldables already fight physics. Bigger battery, bigger screen, hinge mechanics, durability, thermals. If Samsung tries to jam a full ultra camera stack in there, something else takes the hit. So if they keep it sleek and capable, that's a win for the people who actually want a foldable that feels good every day. Because this is where the One UI 9 leak angle matters most. The talk is Snapdragon 8 Gen 5 inside. Assuming Samsung goes that route globally or in key markets, that's going to be a serious chip. More headroom for multitasking, better sustained performance, and better efficiency if Qualcomm delivers on thermals. And efficiency matters more than raw power on foldables because you're driving big displays. You're running multi-window, you're doing floating apps, drag and drop, and often keeping a bunch of stuff alive in the background. A foldable doesn't just need a fast chip. It needs a chip that stays fast without cooking the device. On the software side, the One UI 9 is the real tell. The leaks mention redesigned UI elements like a new music player, improved multitasking tools, and more customization. Those sound like standard yearly updates, but on a wider inner display, multitasking changes can be huge. A 4:3 layout means split screen becomes more balanced. Two apps side by side don't feel like two thin columns. Toolbars can sit where they belong. Drag and drop feels less cramped. And Samsung's whole DeX-adjacent productivity vibe suddenly makes more sense in this form factor. This is why people are excited. The hardware and software finally line up. Now here's another interesting part: positioning. The rumors suggest this wide fold could exist alongside a more traditional Z Fold 8 launching around the same time. If Samsung does that, it's basically them saying, we're not sure which shape will win, so we'll offer both. Or they're segmenting the lineup, one for people who want the classic tall profile, and one for people who want the tablet-like experience. And if that's true, it also explains why we haven't seen true images yet. If Samsung is still finalizing which variant goes wider, or which markets get it, you might see UI assets and internal references before you see clean product shots. CAD renders pop up, sure, but they can be based on early info. Firmware assets tend to show up when software teams are actively supporting a hardware target. That's why the animation leak matters. It suggests the UI is being tuned to this form factor right now. So when's the launch? Nothing official, but the expectation floating around is the second half of the year for the reveal window, possibly tied to an Unpacked event. And some chatter points to a date like July 22nd, but treat that as pure rumor until Samsung sends invites. Also, there's talk that Samsung will roll this out alongside the Z Flip 8 and a new Galaxy Watch. That makes sense. Samsung likes an ecosystem moment. Foldables, wearables, and software updates all in one event. And zooming out, there are even bigger lineup shifts rumored, like the Galaxy S27 Ultra potentially dropping S Pen support. If Samsung is reshuffling what Ultra means, it might be trying to push productivity in different directions, maybe more toward foldables and software instead of stuffing every feature into one slab phone. That's the bigger picture. Samsung is trying to define the next era of mobile hardware, and a truly wider Z Fold is one of the cleanest, most obvious upgrades they can make. But we're not done. The biggest question is whether Samsung will go all in, or if this will be a limited release, a testing the waters device that ships in fewer regions. The name Wide Fold itself sounds like a branch on the family tree, not the main trunk. And Samsung has done that before. Experiment, watch sales, then commit. Either way, if the 4:3 hint is accurate, the foldable experience is about to feel a lot more like a tablet you can fold, and a lot less like a phone that got stretched. And that's exactly why people are hyped. If you want me to do a follow-up the second we get real photos, pricing leaks, or a clearer launch timeline, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. And comment one thing: do you want Samsung to keep the classic tall Z Fold shape, or should the wide fold become the default design going forward? This is the kind of leak cycle I love, because it isn't just, here's a new color, or here's a tiny spec bump. This is Samsung possibly changing the entire feel of the Z Fold in one move. So here's my challenge to you: grab your current phone, rotate it to landscape, and imagine that as your everyday unfolded workspace. If that sounds better than the tall fold layout, you already understand why the wide fold could be the one. See you in the next one.